we'll make a start. We haven't filled our seats yet, but anyway, we'll carry on. So good afternoon, everyone. Today is a really special date for us, as you know. We're one day out of Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, but we have our keynote speaker, which we're delighted to have, Seamus, Professor Seamus Reilly. So today is our day. And we're celebrating the fact that we can all come together for the first time in a couple of years. And how special is that? So we're really happy to be together, celebrating our lives and talking metastatic breast cancer on Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And the other thing I'd like to say is and acknowledge a lot has happened in the last couple of years for us all. We've had a lot of, there's been a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, but there's also been many opportunities through COVID, and that's been brought to our doorsteps. So today we're celebrating coming together and the connection and the friendship that happens in this room always. Some of you will know that we started this seminar 7 years ago in Cork, and we had some very special guests, and Professor Seamus Reilly was one of our keynote speakers then too, so you're very welcome back. And thank you for being here, and Olivia also, and Siobhan. We're delighted to continue our long-standing relationship and working partnership with Europa, Donna, and all your team today. So we want this day to be memorable for you, and I hope it will be that, because you are special. Okay, so we have a couple of sound bites from a podcast that we launched at the beginning of the month. And it's for patients by patients. So there'll be a couple of familiar voices here, and you can tell me who they are when you've heard them. So here we are. And this is like talking about fear for the future.
I think I was going to get to, certainly not in a healthy state. I thought it was going to be quite an unwell person. So I think the fear for the future was in my mind when I was told, having herbal cancer, but that fear was lifted last week when I hit my 5-year milestone. So hopefully I'll meet my next 5 year and the 5 year after that, of course.
Living with and beyond cancer is
With and beyond, absolutely.
Whose voice is that? Anya Murphy. Is Anya Murphy in the room yet? Okay, typical, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so let's see a little bit. You tell me who this is.
Not to have gone back even 2 or 3 weeks. I was given a nurse, but nurses are great. Don't get me wrong. Fast. Sit down with the oncologist and say, can you just explain this to me again? There's certain questions that it wasn't taken in.
Deirdre Digan. Yeah, that's you, Deirdre. She's in the room and she doesn't recognize her own voice. But you just missed your opportunity, Anya, sorry. So I suppose the reason for actually listening to those sound bites is actually to realize and for us to respect the impact metastatic breast cancer has on you. Anya, you talked about the fear, and actually your 5-year milestone. Deirdre, you talked about follow-up care, being told that you had metastatic breast cancer, but wanting that opportunity to go back a couple of weeks later to actually ask questions and understand what that was about. So we respect that, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Okay, so
I've gone back to 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. So I'm Helen Forrest, the Director of Nursing Services. And just a couple of housekeeping rules to get out of the way. We shouldn't hear a fire alarm today, okay? But if we do, we need to evacuate the room and actually turn left and out into the car park into the bus stop. The toilets, I think you've probably all figured out already, have you? Okay, down out of here to your left and down to your right. Okay. And you've all had coffee and other beverages, I think. Okay, so if you have a phone, please silence it. And make sure that if you're watching a screen that you can see it, hopefully. And sitting comfortably, do remember if you need to get up and walk about, please do. That's very important for us as well, that you're comfortable in the room. We are operating a hybrid model today, so if you are watching virtually, We would love you to participate in the afternoon, and if you have any questions to ask, they are being moderated and we will include them in the day. So we really want an interactive day with people in the room and also those online. This seminar will be recorded, so the nice thing is that anybody who's maybe not able to make it today or not feeling so well, they will be able to receive it next week on YouTube, and we'll have that on our website as well. We also have an evaluation form for you to just have a look at, see how the day goes for you. If there's anything you'd really like added for next year, please add it in. If there's anything that wasn't so suitable, let us know. It's all about creating space for conversations next year too. Okay, so I would like to say welcomes and thank yous before we start. I'd like to thank our colleagues from Pfizer Oncology, our committed sponsors, for our series of annual seminars, which we know have been running for many years now. Thank you for their commitment and continued support. Our expert panel of speakers, so we've got Professor Seamus Reilly, as I said, Olivia Loughlin, and Siobhan Gaynor. So thank you for your time, your expertise, and your passion and commitment to metastatic breast cancer. I'd like to thank the Keating Foundation, our CEO Liz Yates, Bernie Carter, Jane O'Toole and Fiona Sullivan, and Kelly, who's working with us as a volunteer today. I'd also like to thank our Europa Donna colleagues, Tara Byrne, Fiona McEntee, Miriam Coffey, Deirdre O'Donnell, and Kira, who's here to help us today too. So thank you very much. You have met Fiona, Kelly, Deirdre, Miriam, and Kira at the registration desk. So thank you, ladies, for doing that today. Do take the opportunity as well to learn more about Roach's hair replacement. I see Anna's in the room here, so welcome, Anne. And there's leaflets outside on Europa Donna for Forever Living. You'll have seen them on the way in. And a special mention and thanks to Sheen. We have a little surprise for you down in the afternoon tea room. A little treat for everybody when we get there. So Professor Seamus O'Reilly better hurry up. So I really would like to acknowledge our healthcare professionals. We have total respect for them. COVID is still here, and we would ask you all to be quite vigilant and safe within your space today. And I know you are. I know you're groups that always are. And we also ask you to continue to wear your masks until we get to the tea room later. So thank you for that. And we would like to acknowledge yourselves, the ladies with metastatic breast cancer, and your families and men also, who have been affected, and understand what it's like for you and your families to live through this. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to the Latter Group. They are a corporate fundraiser sponsor of ours, and have been very, very good to us and gave us a lot of attention throughout the year. It's nice to feel cared for and special, and I hope that you're feeling that. Tara, I'd like to invite you now to say a few words. As you know, we have a symbol on this day every year.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon and welcome again to everybody here in the room. It's just lovely to have a sense of energy from people being together after our 2 online events for the past 2 years. And also, of course, welcome to everybody who has chosen to be at home, but will still be with us this year. So, we are here to create awareness of metastatic breast cancer. It does remain an incurable disease, although there's a lot of work going on across the world, but it is still an incurable disease. And it means that, we continue to lose many of our ladies and some men from the breast cancer community. Only a small percentage live beyond 5 years. And that's one of the reasons why 7 years ago now, this is our 7th Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, both ourselves at Europa Donna and the team at Keating Foundation decided that we need to start putting a greater focus on metastatic breast cancer, along with them, many in the medical community as well. But I guess, as I said, it's incurable and people continue to pass away. And indeed, some good friends and very passionate advocates have passed away only most recently. So there's a real sense of, deep grief among us, I know, today and every day. And a sense of rawness as well. But I am glad we can all be together as we work through our 2022 Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day. But in memory of all those who have already passed away, and also with thoughts of hope and healing, we will light this candle. And the candle symbolizes remembrance, but also hope and healing. And we just want to make sure that although these people have died, they will always be with us in spirit. I think, you know, we all have different connections with them, and we will carry on their being as we continue to work through the world of metastatic breast cancer. So we're going to light this to remember. So as well as remembering, we hope that lighting our candle will also bring light to all of us this afternoon, as I said, in the words of healing and hope. And particularly as we enter an afternoon where we're going to embrace talking about communication, talking about challenges, talking about coping, and talking about choices. So I'll hand you back to Helen now, but enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, Tara. So as Tara was saying, our theme for today is NBC All the C's. So we talk about communication, coping, competency to make decisions, cancer itself, compassion, challenges, clinical trials, and choices. Okay. So very strong words, aren't they? But they're affecting all of you and every one of us, even caring for you and for you yourselves. I'm going to just play a couple more sound bites because we're moving into kind of a clinical space now, and I think some of the things we discovered when we were doing our podcast and interviewing you as groups, there were things that we thought would be good, you know,
for people to told that there's a multidisciplinary team approach here, that there's a group of experts making decisions, and they come back to you telling you that what your treatment plan is, but it's an optimal treatment plan. That's really important, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's around the whole multidisciplinary team approach, and we discovered even through interviewing ladies in the focus group that not everybody knew that, and people were often uncomfortable and not very reassured and wanting second opinions. But having said that, if they knew that there was a core team of people, experts making decisions about them, it might have been different. So it's worth being good for
benefits versus risks. Are you told that? No, and certainly in my case, it was this is the treatment you're going to go on, and these are a few side effects, but nothing really. And it's kind of juggles in your head. How much do you need to know at the very beginning, because you're frightened anyway. And I felt I don't need to ask any questions, because if there's any side effects, I'll know, because I have been so well. But certainly it is useful to know about the side effects, because there may be something that you worry about night after night, and it's unwarranted worry, really, if you just put your hand up and say, look, there's something happening here, and would this be down to my treatment?
Is there only in the room? You didn't miss that
It's
one.
versus risks.
Okay, so just to let you know that we have actually launched our podcast, and it's for patients by patients. I think it's really important. It's nice, easy listening. Some of the ladies in the room here are involved in it. And you will learn a lot from these ladies, because they want you to know what they didn't know. And I think that's really important. So throughout the afternoon, in the background, you may hear some of our podcast episodes where Anya, Deirdre, and Lisa are talking about issues that were of real concern to them. And these issues are going to be addressed today, this afternoon when we talk. So this is really where the real and authentic conversation starts. So I'm going to introduce you now to our expert panel for this afternoon. Professor Seamus Reilly, Olivia, Loughlin, and Siobhan Gaynor. So here's what we have planned. We're going to have a nice afternoon tea from 3 to 4 p.m. But before that, we're going to listen to Seamus Reilly talk about MPC opportunities and challenges. And then we'll hear Olivia after afternoon tea talk about clinical trials. Siobhan is going to integrate herself, as she's really good at doing this, into the room, and she'll be talking with Seamus and Olivia, and no better person to do that, I can tell you. And then Tara will close out our session this afternoon. So I really do hope you enjoy your afternoon. And this is Seamus, and I'm not going to read all this out, Seamus. So Seamus is our oncologist, our professor, associate professor, and oncologist from Cork University Hospital. I will read the latter part with Seamus so that we have some understanding. Seamus has done a huge amount of work in cancer space, obviously, and in metastatic breast cancer. So I'll tell you a little bit about what happened last year. In 2021, he organised the first national cancer retreat and has instigated a national green cancer clinical trials initiative with Cancer Trials Ireland. He is founding editor of the Journal of Cancer Professional. In the community, he is a founding trustee of Cork Arc Cancer Support House, a co-founder of the Southeastern Cancer Foundation, and has led and developed nurse education and financial hardship patients funds at CUH charity. In society, he has spoken at European Parliament about the impact of the pandemic on patients and healthcare workers. He has over 100 peer-reviewed publications related to cancer therapeutics. Ongoing research projects at the present time include secondary prevention assessment in breast cancer survivors, the impact of expanded access programs in oncology, cybersecurity and cancer care, and the impact of litigation on breast cancer care in Ireland. So Seamus, I'm delighted to welcome you to the stand.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks for organising today. Thanks for attending in presence and virtually. So my talk title is How I Treat Metastatic Breast Cancer. So there's a kind of an overview of what we think about when we're looking after patients with metastatic breast cancer, where things are going in the future, and what we're doing in the hospitals to try and help some of the communication issues that were addressed in the podcast and often come up in our conversations. And it will also be a topic for our discussion with Siobhan. So breast cancer is a global problem. So this is the most common cancer in men and women. So you can see in the bottom, breast cancer is the most common cancer worldwide in women. And this wasn't the case. It's becoming more the case as Western lifestyle moves into the low and middle income countries. But it's a major problem in low and middle income countries because the outcomes are poorer than they are in the Western world. So while it's in our societies, the survival rates are 90%, but in the low and middle income countries, it's less than 50%. Breast cancer is hugely important in our societies globally. And this is Cancer in Cork in 1912. And this is the writer Elizabeth Bowen, and that's her home, Bowen's Court behind it. I talked to one of the team about Elizabeth Bowen because nobody seemed to know about her, and I said she was probably one of the best Irish writers of the 20th century, and she said, well, in other words, if she was a man, she would win the Nobel Prize, and I said, pretty much. So, but her mum died of breast cancer. She was very close to her mum. Florence, my mother, was told by a Dublin doctor to her delight that she'd be in heaven 6 months later because her suffering was so great. But Elizabeth was very undermined by this happy life of my mother and our succession of small houses in a delicious companionship, which our difference in age is hardly affected at all, came to an end with a shock. Her death of cancer when I was 13. I had known she was ill, but not so ill, and when she died, I felt I should never trust life again. And some of my patients with metastatic breast cancer have had this issue that they're concerned about the trust issues that would be for their children when they're not there anymore. And when I hear that in the clinic, this words from Elizabeth Bowen comes back to me. And when we talk when we teach, I put this up as a slide to emphasize to people the transgenerational impact of breast cancer, and that when they're dealing with patients with metastatic breast cancer, that they need to factor in, why decision making is so important, why changes in treatment are so important, why people are fighting so much for longer time, because longer times are birthdays, graduations, significant events. And they're also aware that the importance of them being there for that time. A wise person said to me, the only place you can't be replaced is at home, and to go home from work. And that's very important. So when we think of breast cancer, it's a big group, but it's actually a tribe. And we break it down into small tumors that are slow growing, that aren't going to cause problems, ones that are hormone sensitive, which are like if you can imagine, the tortoise, and then the more rapidly growing ones, which are like the hare that we treat initially with chemotherapy before surgery, whereas the other ones, the slower ones, the tortoises, the hormone sensitive ones, we treat with hormone treatment. And each of those has different patterns. So the ones that are hormone sensitive might have a better outcome initially, but you can see the blue line on the bottom, the risk of it coming back increases over time, and we can see it coming back 15, 20, 30 years later, which is so undermining for people because it means you can't move beyond closure. With some cancers, we say, for instance, for colon cancer, 90% of colon cancer will come back in the first 3 years. Almost none comes back after 5 years. So someone gets to 5 years with colon cancer, that's it. Whereas with breast cancer, there's always that lingering concern. For the more rapidly growing tumors, they tend to come back earlier. Newer studies are breaking this down even more. So the tribe is being divided into sub-trials, and that's because of the use of treatment before surgery. So what they're doing is they're giving treatment up here with surgery, and then they're analyzing the tumor types and then breaking down into further subtypes. This is important because these will define better curative therapies initially, but also better treatments for patients where cancers come back. They'll be able to define what the subtype is and what the treatment type is going to be. So in the next 5 to 10 years, this is how the landscape is going to evolve in our clinics. When people are diagnosed with cancer, they're very, this sounds like mansplaining. So I hope it's not. When people are diagnosed with cancer, they're very upset. But when we talk to them, we say that it's the upset that occurs when cancer comes back is far worse than the upset that occurs when cancer is diagnosed first. And Susan Sontag was a writer, and she wrote about a book called Illness as Metaphor. And in this Illness as Metaphor, she describes her cancer coming back and how upset she was at it. So this is the problem with breast cancer, is that's life of its own over there. Anyway, so with breast cancer, you can see that the cancer is there initially. It has taken 50 years to develop, and then it develops further once it's in the screening phase of that's why the screening programs are here after age 50. And then in the next half century, then the cancer runs the risk of it coming back, and it can come back 5, 10, 20, 30 years after diagnosis. And that's why follow-up of breast cancer studies goes to 10 years at least. That's why treatments in early stage breast cancer go up to 10 years also. And when cancer spreads, then it spreads away from the breast area, and the common sites are bone, the lung, liver, or the brain. And each subtype has a different one. So cancer, the hormone sensitive ones tend to come back to bone first and then spread to the other areas. The hormone insensitive ones can come back mainly to soft tissue, like to lung or to liver. And about a quarter of patients will do that brain involvement. If they've got hormone sensitive disease, that tends to come back. That tends to be a very late event in it, whereas the hormone insensitive ones and the triple negatives and the HER2 positive tumors, that tends to be much earlier problem. And that's a big clinical problem for our patients, because with brain mets, there's loss of independence. You can't drive, the car's outside the door, and the kids need to go to GAA. And it's really challenging for people when this occurs. So what's the goal of treatment? When we see people with metastatic breast cancer, what are we trying to do? So the goal of therapy is to try and smoothen and lengthen the trajectory of an illness. So this is a patient's life. So as you can see the side of the bed here. So this was a quilt that she had done. And so in the center is her home and the importance of home. And then there were the things that she did: swimming, music, travel, her family, travel, her work as a teacher, her musician skills, she used to cycle the Ring of Kerry. And so when we're seeing patients, that's what we're trying to do, to make the hospital part of it as small as possible and the outside life as big as possible. And when we're treating people, what we're looking for is the Goldilocks zone. So the Goldilocks zone is a term in planetary life where it's not too much treatment, so that there's side effects of treatment and not too little treatment that there's a lack of benefit with it, because under treatment is a problem as well. If there's a lack of intensity or dosing with treatment, the side effects are great because they're non-existent, but the effectiveness of treatment may not be good either. This issue of side effects of treatment is really important. So I know Siobhan is a very passionate patient advocate, and I know that, and one of the things, her voice in the cancer trials arena is to make us aware of the impact of what we do. You know, it's one thing to design a protocol or a study, but unless you can look at it from a patient's perspective, then the study may be meaningless in terms of its outcomes, but also impossible to conduct because it's unacceptable. And one of the issues that we have now is this issue of Black Lives Matter and also gender equality in our communities. You can see it in Iran, for instance. When we're not hearing the voices, then we're also not, we can't judge the treatments. And so we know that for younger women, they're more likely to not tolerate hormone therapy for breast cancer, so the treatment's likely to be less effective. Similarly, for African-American women, their pattern of side effects of treatment is different to our side effects, Caucasian side effects. And if they're underrepresented in trials, then we don't hear that voice. And so their outcomes aren't as good because we're assuming the same side effects for them as we would for a Caucasian population. There's a patient advocate called Jill Feldman who does work with lung cancer, and so on the right hand side is what we think, and on the left hand side is what she's feeling. So on the right hand side, we think she looks fantastic, but these are the range of side effects she's experiencing from her lung cancer therapy, and all of those will affect her quality of life. All of those will make that, you know, the quilt less effective, or and the Goldilocks zone less effective as well. But if we don't hear that voice, then we're not going to be able to realize it and manipulate it, and also realize that the treatment isn't just, you know, where the gains in treatment need to come. She also talks about trying to integrate things like clinical trials into life. So this is her life in terms of, you know, the cancer being diagnosed, the clinical presentation, the scans that need to be done, the various aspects of care that need to be juggled in terms of family life, and trying to integrate a clinical trial into all of that, which can be very rigid and very difficult. You know, they've got a very defined protocol. That can be hugely challenging. So unless we have, by having the patient voice at the conversation, we become more aware of what's important in the patient's life, but also what's needed to make the trial feasible and reasonable. We talked about COVID earlier, and COVID has made all of our lives very difficult, but has made patients' lives very difficult. A wise patient said to me, cancer is a lonely illness, and COVID is cool because it magnifies the isolation that occurs with cancer as an illness. It also reduces the supports like the Cancer Support House, the peer support that's present here. This doesn't happen on Zoom. You can't go for a glass of Pinot Grigio before a talk. I'm not looking at anybody in particular, you know, on Zoom. You might be able to, but you can't. It isn't that same kind of buzz. And there's lots of support services, and there's probably also more pressure at home, more financial hardship at home, more presence at home. As the guy consultant retired, and he arrived home, and his wife looked to me. She said, "I married you for love, but not for lunch." And these mental health issues are important. So I think sometimes we can think in medicine that it's all about, you know, cancer's getting smaller on the scan and pain getting better. But if we look, if cancer survivors linked to mental health, for every cancer I treat, if people are depressed, they do worse. And if you reverse that depression, they do better. So there's a thing called lifestyle in oncology and what I do, which are things like managing stress, relationships, sleep, and things like substances, healthy eating. There's a new thing called precision nutrition, where they're going to look at, which is being developed in the United States, where certain nutritions may be deleterious to cancer types, and they're looking at ways of harnessing our nutrition and manipulating nutrition to improve cancer care. We also use exercise as well. So this is an exercise prescription that we give to patients in our clinic when they're starting chemotherapy treatment for early stage breast cancer. It's not clear if exercise helps patients with metastatic breast cancer. There's a study, there are two studies that were negative And there's a study that's on, another study that's ongoing at the moment. My personal feeling is that it does help because I think it improves well-being, it reduces fatigue, it definitely reduces nerve side effects from chemotherapy, it reduces heart side effects from chemotherapy as well. So in our clinics, we issue these to our patients from Canada. What about palliative care? So, and a lot of our patients, the P word is in Cork, it's called the Marymount word, because that's the hospice in town. And so we did a survey of our breast cancer patients a few years ago, and what we found was that patients thought palliative care can make things better, but it can only be offered when nothing else can be done. So in lung cancer, they did a survey study. Half the patients got palliative care when nothing could be done, and half got a straight diagnosis. And the people who had palliative care lived 25% longer. So we've been integrating palliative care into our services more as a result of that. For pain management, they also have phenomenal supports for children. And for many of our patients, they're more concerned about their children than they are about themselves. So this is an added resource with dedicated social workers with expertise in this area. And when we're trying, Helena talked about multidisciplinary care. So I think that it's very important that, you know, your care is not the oncologist. Your care is the team around them. That can be physiotherapy, pain management. It's the secretary, it's the liaison nurse, the radiotherapy team, often the breast surgeon. And we're only as good as our team. So this is a wall of iron from John Donna, whose book, Anne Carr, and he talks about a thing called harmony. And we all think we're the biggest stone in the wall, but if we take out the small stones, the wall will collapse. And it's the same for everybody, you know, for patient care. If the person who's supposed to deliver the scan to the system so that it can be uploaded so that you can make a decision in your care, if they didn't do it or are unreliable, then it doesn't matter how good the rest of the team is or how many PhDs or MDs or whatever they have. So and part of team working in medicine is a language I didn't hear in medical school, or may have heard but didn't listen to. It's a huge part of patient care. Over time, the number of ranges for patients with cancer has evolved. So this is basically the last century of breast cancer care, with increasing treatment options becoming available as we move from the left to the right of the slide. And this is the last 10 years of breast cancer approvals by the US Food and Drug Administration. So you can see this is a huge amount of new drugs and new treatment options for patients with metastatic breast cancer. And these have made a huge difference to cancer care in terms of survival, people living for longer with metastatic breast cancer. And that's shown here. So this looks a bit, so if you what I'm just going to do is take HER2 positive breast cancer, which is the first one here. So this is the initial trial of looking at just giving chemo alone to patients with HER2 positive breast cancer. We would say probably about 15 years ago. This is the current one. So you can see that it's at least doubled survival in HER2 positive breast cancer with the advances that have occurred at this stage. And the same is found in triple negative breast cancer and hormone sensitive breast cancer. So these clinical developments that have occurred because of clinical trials and because of discovery in the lab are really impacting now over the last several years in terms of what we do and in terms of our treatment options. Medical knowledge is growing, it doubles every 75 days. So if you're a patient with cancer and you're looking at the doctor in front of you, and you know, so even if they spend all of their lives reading, not treating anybody, not going to clinics and just reading the medical literature, they won't be able to keep up. So to keep up and to make sure that you're getting the care you need, there are consensus conferences, and these are held every 2 years. And the first one was this one in early breast cancer, and then they started one in advanced breast cancer. So 2015, and next one is 2023, and they're held in Lisbon. And the one for metastatic breast cancer is unique in that it has embedded patient advocates in it. So the patient advocate gives a survivor statement at the end of the meeting, and that's the last word in the meeting to emphasize the importance of the patient's voice in care. And this is really important because the message needs to go to the community about the importance of what we're doing. But these guidelines, then they're available online and they're freely available to your treating team. And they're really, they're like the Ballymaloe cookbook of care. They're like the most important probably the most important publication in the medical literature that year in terms of care. I love them because it's my security blanket in terms of care. It means that keeping is up to date, and I also say to the patients that it's, you know, sometimes we go to say we won't know we're going to do until this meeting when this is being presented. So they get the assurance that their care is up to date and that they're, you know, that we're hearing what the research aspects are doing. These guidelines then produce these. I won't go into the various this drug versus that drug, but they're basically lines of therapy that occur, and you know, first line, second line, third line that we use, and they go into algorithms. So this, you know, so with the team you have, this is the algorithm of care. This is the first line treatment, second line treatment, third line treatment, fourth line treatment that we use. So this is a very much a foundation of care that we would do in our clinics. How to pick what to do? There's a thing called tailoring therapy. So they're the recipe guidelines, but what about the patient then is the really important part. So there's things like what type of cancer the patient has, what are patient factors like, and you know, maybe the patient has difficulty with tablets, so you don't give tablet forms of treatment. They may have difficulty with travel, so you want to try and base care at home as much as possible. What their preferences are. Hair loss, in my opinion, is a huge issue. So a survey of German ovarian cancer patients looked at what the top three things. So the top three things that the ovarian cancer patients wanted was they wanted more time with their doctor, they wanted less hair loss with treatment, and they wanted better treatment. But hair loss was a significant factor. So when we're treating, I use the drugs that cause hair loss last, because if you give a drug that causes hair loss and you find out after a month or two that it hasn't worked, then it's going to take a year for the hair to regrow. So leave it to last, because the guidelines don't have say one drug is better than the other. But I emphasize that the team, you know, that with loss of hair comes loss of privacy. I'm at an age now where I have friends who've become patients, and you can see I've become much more woke. I probably should to the side effects of chemotherapy treatment, to the loss of privacy that occurs with it, I think to the frailty and vulnerability that they have as a result, particularly of hair loss. So this is kind of another way of looking at it. So this I put this quote up. This patient I've looked after for in her 14th year of our relationship. We were in a long-term relationship. So in her 14th year, she said to me, "I judge your success by my children's birthdays." And I thought it was and I put this in my talk on metastatic breast cancer as a salute to her. But also I think also it's very much the philosophy of metastatic breast cancer care. So what are the challenging issues? Well, the challenging issues can be things like where people have other medical illnesses that may interact with treatment. So, for instance, in patients with HER2-positive breast cancer, heart side effects are a common thing. How do you juggle heart side effects with the need for cancer treatment? Challenging home situations. Many of my patients are in the sandwich generation where they need to look after elderly patients above and children below. A huge amount of my patients seem to have children with special needs. I'm not sure why, or maybe I hear about it more and more aware of it. Metastatic disease to brain, or where the disease is just limited to one or two spots. I'm going to go over with that. And cancer genetics, does everybody need it? Do some people need it? The challenge of minority and immigrant groups, 10% of our population are immigrants, and many of them have, you know, English is not the spoken language because there are so many immigrants, they can circulate in their own community without ever interacting, without ever needing to speak English. And what about supplements? And COVID, is it irrelevant? Yes, it is, because of the isolation that occurs. And vaccination, I'm just mentioning this here. There's a study called the Vroom trial. And in the Vroom trial, they found that if people got vaccinated when they weren't on chemotherapy, the response to vaccination was better. So a message here today is that if you're on treatment and maybe you've got a treatment break at the moment, get vaccinated, because the vaccine is going to be more effective, we think, in this time. Vitamin D, I love vitamin D. So we measure vitamin D in all of our patients, and the reason for that is that in the initial studies that were done, it makes chemotherapy more effective. And there's a thing called the Sunshine trial in colon cancer, where people got high dose vitamin D and did better with treatment. So we measure vitamin D in everybody and supplement it if necessary. Do you need genetic testing? Some people need genetic testing. If you've got triple negative breast cancer, the guidelines are under 60 with triple negative breast cancer, you get genetic testing done. And then the other thing is sometimes with patients where the genetic testing is negative, and you're like, well, what was tested? So the panels for genetic testing, it was bracket 1, bracket 2, but now the panels are much bigger, maybe 21 genes. So it's always worth having the conversation about what test was done and going back and maybe doing an extended panel on the basis that the knowledge of genetics has increased significantly. For brain involvement, we talked about this. So brain involvement management has changed significantly. So in the old days, if there was a brain involvement, you'd do radiotherapy, whole brain radiotherapy. Now the prognosis of metastatic disease is much better. So we look at surgery or directed radiotherapy, or if there are less than four lesions present. And this often involves a discussion with the neurosurgeons, with the specialist radiotherapists. But these are really important discussions to have when this is diagnosed. The issue of driving always comes up as well, and newer drugs that have better penetration across the brain. And this is the issue of radiotherapy, where the radiotherapy is directed at single areas. So there's a trial called the COMET trial. And what this found is that if you've got limited metastatic disease, say a bone less than 4 or less than 5 lesions, that directed radiotherapy or surgery to these areas may lead to better outcome. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to skip I'm just going to go to here and then skip to the final talks about communication with the medical team. One of the things that comes up a lot is why do we need all these treatments? And that's because cancer changes over time. So the cancer might start off in a certain way with a certain pattern. The treatment you get then changes that, gets rid of the sensitive cells, and that allows, and then the resistant cells start to develop. So then you can see a spot on a scan, then you change the treatment around. And that change evolves over time. There's newer studies now where they're taking blood samples in patients during treatment to identify that change earlier on. And we know in one study that makes a difference in terms of outcome, because by picking it up earlier, those patients live longer. So I'd say in the next couple of years, there's going to be more of that, of what we call not waiting for the scan to change, but getting a blood test to see if the circulating tumor DNA has changed. So this second last point I wanted to make was just newer drugs are coming out, and they look dynamic. There's the thing called the Destiny trial and a drug called Enhertu, and they have transformed the landscape of breast cancer management, but they're not available yet. And part of the reason for non-availability is cost. And the newer drugs are becoming more expensive. So this is the new drugs for early stage breast cancer, a drug called pembrolizumab that we give after breast cancer surgery. The average cost per treatment is $150,000 per patient. And because of these costs, there's a delay in these newer drugs coming in place in Ireland. We have clinical trials that allow availability of them and expanded access programs that allow availability of it. But it causes enormous upset among patients where these new drugs are headline items at international conferences and they're not available in the clinic, even though they could potentially transform lives. And this is a major problem and a growing problem because the drugs are becoming more expensive with each year. I'm hoping that we can do what we did with COVID, where we get collective bargaining for drug costs in Europe from the European Union, rather than a country of 5 million bargaining with companies. If an organization of 300 million bargains, then I think it could be cheaper. In medicine, we've become more aware of the power and importance of words. So this is a guy called Henry March. He's a neurosurgeon. He wrote a book called Do No Harm, and he has subsequently developed prostate cancer. And this book is written from the point of view of his as a patient. And he quoted, I look back and wondered how little I thought about the effect I had on my own patients after I had spoken to them. And in our clinics, we talked about this, the languages that I didn't learn in medical, or heard or didn't appreciate in medical school. So the language of teamwork and management, the language of self-care, the language of money, thanks, the language of patience. And we're hoping to get those voices more into the clinic and more into our clinical research arena, but really more into the clinic as to make people more aware. And we have there's this concept called conspiracy of experience. of how in marriage, how a married couple mold each other over time, but there's also a conspiracy of how patients mold their doctors over time. And this is this was presented at the metastatic breast cancer meeting that we talked about, the guideline meeting. It's called a Build a Doctor program in the University of Sydney, and looking at things like emotional self-awareness, empathy, resilience in terms of making a better doctor. This is a quote from that we use in our teaching from the editor of New York Times book. "To the typical physician, my illness is a routine incident in these rounds, while for me it is a crisis of my life. I would feel better if I had a doctor who at least perceived this incongruity. I just wish he would give me his whole mind just once, be bonded with me for a brief space, survey my soul as well as my flesh. Together my illness, for each man is ill in his own way." So how do we do that in medicine? Well, part of it is we make people look at things from the other way. We make people aware that while we think of breast cancer as a physical thing, for patients it's psychological. And this is a poem by Sylvia Plath called Elm. "I'm terrified by this thing that sleeps in me all day long. I feel its soft feathery turnings, its malignity." And we look at the medical literature also. So this is a book called, this is a podcast called Medicine Unboxed. And this lady here, Marion Coos, her husband had a brain tumor, and this is a book called The Iceberg. And we used it, we encourage our trainees to they're given multiple options: buy the book, read the review of The Guardian, or listen to the podcast. She's brilliant, she speaks very eloquently, and it's to make them more aware of what's going on in the patient's lives when they leave the clinic. We also use this book written by Siobhan Dowd, who was from Cork, and she had metastatic breast cancer, and she wrote this for her son. She didn't finish it, so Patrick Ness finished it for her. It's called A Monster Calls, and we use this to make our trainees aware of the impact of the cancer illness on the children. It's really powerful, and it's also a movie as well with Sigourney Weaver and Liam Neeson. And we also use this video at Johns Hopkins Metastatic Breast Cancer Retreat for Couples. It's on YouTube, and to emphasize the impact of the illness on the family and on the patient. And more recently, we've looked at this. This is Dope Sick, the series on, I think it was Disney. So Dope Sick is deals with a doctor who's looking after a patient, and she develops opiate addiction. He develops an opiate addiction. She dies of opiate addiction, and he loses his license to practice, moves to a different city. And it's about a doctor. There's multiple things involved. There's bad pharma. There's doctor-patient relationships. There's people behaving very badly. There's regulators behaving badly. But there's a scene at the end where he goes to the house of the family to ask for forgiveness. And we use this to. This is a really powerful scene, and I'm not sure if this will work. Where he gets out of the car. No, it doesn't work. So sorry, there's a player, but so he gets out of the car and he goes to the family to look for forgiveness. And we use this to emphasize to people, the importance of the doctor-patient relationship, how to ask for forgiveness, and also from the family's point of view, how to forgive. So just in conclusion, breast cancer management has been transformed in the past 3 decades. It has gone a long way. It needs to go even further. Patients' outcomes are better because of new treatments, because of advocacy. The Pink Ribbon was started because people looked at the AIDS advocates and said, they have achieved so much, we're going to emulate them. And that's how the Pink Ribbon Brigade was born. Integration of existing treatments, the appreciation of the importance of the patient's voice. We need to make these treatments more affordable and equitable. They have the ability to transform lives, but we will squander that potential if we don't make them affordable in our society. Thank you.
I might ask Siobhan to come up now. Is that okay? And I'll introduce Siobhan, and then we'll probably add on an extra 10 minutes. Would that be okay with everybody? Yeah, because we'll need it, I think. I'd like to introduce Siobhan. I've known Siobhan for some years now in our positive living group. I'm going to introduce Siobhan as one of you to start with. Siobhan was diagnosed with breast cancer in May 2019. And having self-identified symptoms of concern, she went to her GP about some changes to her breast. She had surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and hormone therapy, and finished active treatment back in December 2019. And then unfortunately in October 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, Siobhan was diagnosed with secondary meds. She started to experience back pain and fatigue, and so decided to seek medical attention. And following this, she was put on oral chemotherapy and continuous treatment with hormone therapy. And I'm going to speak Siobhan's words here, because she says, when I was diagnosed with primary breast cancer and having worked in the field, my knowledge really helped me to accept and understand it quite quickly. I knew the incidence and risk factors and never took it personally. Once I finished active treatment, I was more than happy to move on with a renewed sense of precious life. A new sense of how precious life is. However, metastatic cancer was a completely different animal, and it forced changes to her life that were difficult but necessary. She decided after 31 years of working full-time that she needed to step off the career ladder. And I know that was very difficult for Siobhan at the time in her own group. She's doing part-time consultancy work now, as well as getting involved in lots of interesting voluntary work with various Irish cancer groups. She's a very proud member of the amazing Positive Living Group, facilitated by the wonderful Keating Foundation, and became a member of Cancer Trials Ireland Patient Consultation Committee, a subgroup of the board. She has also planned a few trips and is making memories with family and friends. She considers herself semi-retired at this point, but I don't think so, Siobhan. I think you've had a very busy October. So just a little bit about Siobhan's profession then, and like the double whammy as to why she's here today too. A scientist by profession, she has worked in medicines research and development, including in clinical trials and program management. Indeed, she worked at Cancer Trials Ireland, where she helped to set up its quality and training division. In recent years, she has assisted a number of academic startup companies that are developing cell and gene therapy medicines. She has worked with many patient advocates over the years, training many patient organizations in navigating the rules, regulations of clinical trials and medicine development. When it comes to clinical trials, Siobhan has this advice for you. It is not always guaranteed that a phase 3 trial will benefit every single individual who takes part at the outset. However, at a minimum, participants should receive the gold standard of care for their particular condition. Be assured that by the time you are asked to participate, the trial has undergone rigorous reviews by ethics committees, the HPRA, Irish Medicines Regulator, as well as by expert scientists and clinicians, and hopefully patient peers. Do your own research and speak to experts and other patients about your particular situation. Own your personal disease knowledge and your beliefs in arriving at the decisions you make. As for the future, Siobhan has a number of hopes and aspirations. First, for my children to become happy, confident and curious adults, and if she is lucky, to witness that. Second, to experience some unrushed travel adventures. And third, to remain curious and help others whilst I can. So Siobhan, you're married to Malachi, and he was your best friend for many, many years. And you have 2 teenage boys and a 13-year-old girl. So you're really welcome today, and it's lovely to have the personal and the scientific side of Siobhan, and we all appreciate that really very much. Thank you, Siobhan.
Long. I might try and shorten that one for the next time. Thanks, Helen. So I suppose I struggled, as I hope you got some sense of at the beginning, as we all did, when we're diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer with, identity. So I suppose I found it very difficult because I was always very passionate about research and science. And I've always been a very curious person, and I found myself in waiting rooms asking, why? Oh, God, can we not do this better? Can we not change? So I really struggled with that. So what I wanted to do was look at the problem and the problems that you have all spoken to me about very freely. I'm very privileged to have those discussions along with doctors and scientists and other healthcare workers I've met along the way, because I really figured there was a huge disconnect. Sorry, the slides are there. Yeah. I don't know where my slides are. So I just saw this disconnect between what I'd understood intellectually and academically and scientifically in terms of the treatment of metastatic breast cancer and what I was experiencing as a patient. And of course, it all comes down to communication, as do many things in life. So I felt I had the benefit of this background, and how could I use it meaningfully for patients? So I started to do what you do in science is you look at the literature, which is you go and Google basically what the information is, what's out there. And sadly, there's very little available in metastatic cancer generally, not just breast cancer, all stage 4 cancers. And there's many reasons for this. One of them is, first of all, there weren't too many treatments to offer us until recently, as Seamus has described. That's changed. So in many ways, we're kind of a living experiment, right? All of us with stage 4 cancer. And that's the way I see it. You know, I and all of us in this room are living an experiment in that we're all privileged to have access to these treatments. But in fact, then, while they're extending our life and hopefully our quality of life as well, what does that mean? And what services do we need? And where are the problems? And my experience, and speaking to all of you, is the same, is that really nobody quite knows what to do with us. So I interpret that as, right, that gives me permission to basically decide what I want, and when I want it, and how I want it, and what are the things I need. But in order to engage with our medical teams, we need to have more data. It's all about data research. And research is a team sport. You know, research is actually, sorry, this is the wrong presentation. It was the actual first presentation, Helen, or somebody, could I just ask you? Sorry, it's the wrong one, it's the top one sent. I have it on my phone right up to get it.
Yeah, no problem, sorry. Just have to, a little technical, well, it's not a technical issue, but it's, we just need to escape from this one.
Yeah, this is a Mac, so it won't havoc.
You will go,
Yeah, no, listen, I can speak to it.
sorry.
Yeah. I'm saying anyway, basically,
Want to bring it up? Yeah.
I'll bring it up.
You want me to read?
Yeah, it's not so much the slides, so.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, I like to put my money where my mouth is and think about what the needs are. And when you look at the literature, as I said earlier, this is the place where Seamus describes himself and his colleagues go to look for the latest information, because all of the evidence, all of the decisions they make in terms of our treatments are all based on evidence. You know, science is about the evidence, and they're not just going to switch because treatments, for example, because one person told them was a good idea. It's all about evidence. So you have to generate data to get to evidence. So what do we do? So in terms of communication, I started looking at some of the needs that patients have in the literature, what's described in the literature. And of course, it's complicated, right? As Seamus said, we're very complex as stage 4s. We're very complicated. There's a lot going on. It's not just about our tumor. So my focus on the research side is the non-tumor pieces that I think are missing. And I feel very strongly that as a patient who's experienced this, I have a duty to help the others behind me. You know, as we spoke about many times, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. We know many of them. So let's move forward and help the others behind us. That's all we can do. So what we know from the literature is that women with metastatic breast cancer in the literature talk about a need for support psychologically, but also health information support. I know I've spoken to many of you individually and indeed within the group about what's out there, what information is out there, how to find it. But actually, there's not that much. As I said, we're this cohort that are, you know, new, and that drives opportunities in science. When you have a difference, you try and exploit that difference. So what I'm trying to do is basically set up a study. In this case, a survey of as many metastatic breast cancer patients in Ireland as I can get to, along with my academic colleagues. And thankfully, Seamus has agreed to work with me, because frankly, if I stood up and said, Siobhan Gaynor wants to go to work with me in the academia, they'd all look at me and go, why would I bother? So Seamus has been a key driver behind all of this and has put trust in me and within Cancer Trials Ireland to deliver. I'll talk later on this afternoon about patient involvement in research, but I won't go to that. So what we're trying to do as a group is build a survey to ask the right questions. But in order to ask the right questions, I need you to help me, okay? Because you're the experts on your own condition. Nobody else is, you are. So what I'm trying to do is get to what questions I need in my survey, okay? So very kindly, what we have is a questionnaire that I need your input. So far, let me tell you where I am. Based on the literature, based on my own experience, and based on talking to lots of you, I want the survey to focus on, so far, prognosis. This is all written down, so that's why I'm not bothering with slides, because you're going to get a questionnaire in a minute. So the questions, number one, what everyone asks me and everyone says to me is, you know, do I do or not want prognosis? When's the right time? How long? In the context of this is a very uncertain condition, as I described earlier, we're living with the newer agents. What does that mean? So bear in mind that it's difficult for the healthcare workers as well. So how much do you want to know about that? And everyone's different. Number two, how can we live with uncertainty? That's what we're all living with. Do you understand your own diagnosis and your subtype? Is there anything that you're missing from that? Would you like, for example, access to your own medical information, patient notes, will that help you or not? Are you being open within your own families, within your own communities around your diagnosis or not? I'm aware that people have different issues there. And then there's a lot to do with more intimate things, sexuality, fertility, all of the aspects, because as you know, we're not a broad church. We women with metastatic breast cancer are in their 20s, in their 30s, all the way through to 70s, 80s, different issues. Exercise, Seamus spoke about exercise. I'd like to find out from you how much exercise, whether you find it helpful. Palliative care, Seamus spoke to it earlier, it's a tricky subject. I'm aware of the, the connotations, the language, what it means, what's your understanding of that? And then finally, what we'd like to look at is, for example, in stage 4, Seamus described how all those factors that feed into his decision and his colleagues' decisions in providing treatments. But what's not taken account of is the cost in terms of time to us as patients in having the treatment. So not just the side effects. How much time does it take if, for example, you go every week, for an IV chemo? How much time does it take out of your carers, like your husband or your other carers, like your children's life? In the round, in other words, the whole time it takes to be a patient. I mean, my experience is it's pretty much a full-time job. And is there anything that can be done to improve that? Can we talk about that? So there are the areas that I think and that the literature has told me that are important. What I want to know from you guys, and please speak up, is there's a survey going to go around to fill in more detail. If you don't want to speak up now, I'll collect this information afterwards. This questionnaire will be available to everybody online and in the room, and also follow up with me. I'll put my personal email on it, so it will be held confidentially. You don't have to put your name on it. It will be held confidentially by me, but I'd be very privileged if you take part. So has anyone else got anything to add to that rather long list? And the questionnaires are going around now. Is there anything I'm missing here? Is really where I'm getting to. Anything that's of importance to you around communication and information from your teams that you feel they're not asking you? Questions they're not asking you. Roseanne.
Yeah, I suppose I was the youngest when I was diagnosed and I was selected for menopause. I don't think there was enough here around what they think. That I got fasciitis and I was told it's nothing to do with that. And yet I found out later on that you quite frequently get fasciitis when you're going through the menopause. So I think that side of things, it's really like my cancer doctors was sort of like, their whole thing was, as long as your cancer is going well, it doesn't matter about the rest of you. So I feel that side of things, particularly when it's something like the menopause that they continue into, should be more care around that for the patient.
Thank you. That's a big break, it's hard.
I don't want to be standing up there if no one will come. Anybody else like?
Anyone else you might try? Anyone else? Thanks, Claire. It's Claire over here, and of course,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was great, Siobhan, honestly, really, I knew you'd be a superstar, Jar. There's still something about, and maybe you have it down here, but it's how do we advocate for ourselves when you get in that room with the oncologist. And I know the oncologist has a very short period of time, or you're with nurse, but how do you do that? Or what are the simple things that would bring about? I mean, I think Seamus talked about it, the relationship with the oncologist, and I really, really like that a patient can build a doctor. But I think we're so far removed from that. But I think that's a really, really powerful thing, because we have no control. That's the problem. You know, we are living with uncertainty, and that's, for me, that is the key thing, living with uncertainty and no control. So you try everything to try and get control. So if you could build your doctor so that he would understand that you need information, that you to try to reduce that uncertainty, or that you're advocating for yourself, and in advocating for yourself, you're not undermining him in any way. And recently I do a 5K your way, which the oncologist has set up in Belfast, which is fantastic. And that's a fantastic way for me to say to my oncologist what's really going on. So I said to him, I want my scans. I've always had my scans, and I always have. And he said, if I was you, I would do that too. And I said, yes, but it's my life. And he kind of stepped back as if, oh gosh, I hadn't really thought of it like that. But those conversations actually have happened as we're running together, which is fantastic. But those are things I think, if we could, even if it was in our think we could build a doctor that would understand, or that would not be put off if we ask questions, that we're not undermining them. I think for me that would be fantastic, you know. And it's that relationship with the doctor, you know, how would, because I think that would be a huge benefit to women.
So, if I can, is it okay?
Yeah, of
Yes.
course.
Just talk to the leader of staff. So at the advanced breast cancer meeting, the number of oncologists is actually quite small, just disappointing. Because there's a lot of treating breast cancer oncologists in the country. And so the problem with it, so at the meeting, it's really good about doctor-patient stuff. So it talks about the patients not establishing a meaningful relationship with the patient. So there's a thing called the Prada moment. So the Prada moment is to see what's in the handbag coming in, which is usually a book or a magazine or something, and start the conversation with, what are you reading there? Or that looks interesting, or you know, something non-clinical, which kind of it puts a break on it and it normalizes conversation, and then a clinical conversation can start. So that's what we try and do in the clinic. I think that the problem in medicine is not the people who attend the meetings, it's the people who don't go to the meetings and are, that you can hear a voice but not listen to it. And I think that that's challenging. I think part of it is we need to create a healthcare environment where that aspect of things is more emphasized. That's why I wanted to talk. I skipped some of the drug stuff because I wanted to go to that stuff, the end of the build the doctor stuff, because I think it's probably more important, and it may be, you know, that it's something that we need to integrate more into medical education. The problem is that the medical workforce is also under strain as well, particularly after everything that's happened. But that doesn't mean that this isn't important, because
and you know, I absolutely, and we all get 5 minutes in clinic, and we wait, you know, 1 hour, and by the time we get it in, you actually don't even want to take 5 minutes nearly. But I really think, you see, that building the doctor would actually reduce your time with us as well. I honestly think that is where I just think as well, society has changed. We have an awful lot of young women with metastatic breast cancer, and they want so much knowledge now, you know, because they want some control over their lives. So I do think things are changing. So sorry, Donna.
I didn't just pick this out of the air, communication, and you know, I spoke to a number of both junior and senior colleagues of Seamus, and you know, surgery radiotherapists, and all of them said they want to communicate better. It's not, they don't know where to start, and they don't know how, and they don't know what our needs are. hence the survey. You know, this is how you engage, you know, having these conversations is wonderful, but we need to analyze this and quantify it. But your input into this will help me shape it, and that's why, thank you for the opportunity. And this is very important, so please engage. Claire, I'm just going to ask Claire for a question as well before we break for afternoon tea. And we can continue this after, you know.
We have one question as well that came in online.
Okay, online after Claire, yeah. Claire, you can speak out loud, go on. Yeah, no, it's come through now.
Is it coming through? Yeah. It's not even a question, it's something that Roseanne brought up about menopause and as a side effect of the drugs, and just from my own experience and what I'll put on the questionnaire as well is that anytime I have mentioned it, you know, to my team, it's, well, you know, as long as everything else is going fine, you know, we'll worry about that later. Whereas that is quality of life, you know, all the different things that can happen when you're lacking in estrogen completely. You know, it's been taken away and it's been talked about now in the public anyway. So now's the best time to get onto that. But it was only a while back when I was speaking to my sister-in-law, who's actually a midwife. I was telling her all my, you know, menopause issues and whatever, and I broke down. I was just so upset. And she said, oh, well, you have to go to the complex menopause clinic on Hall Street. I said, what's that? And she said, it's a new clinic that was set up about a year ago, especially for any patient, for any condition that is having menopause due to medication or surgery. And it's nothing to do with just going into menopause because of your age. And I said, oh God, I never heard of that. And how do you do that? And you go through your GP. So it's nothing to do with your oncology team then. You go through your GP and you get a referral. So I've been referred and I'm waiting, and it'll take a while because it's a newish clinic and more people are hearing about it. But the thing is, we do hear things by word of mouth. And that's how important it is for communication for all of us as patients. And sometimes it's new to the medics as well. We can give back information, and that's why, as you say, the relationship between the medic and the patient is so.
Absolutely, and I should say this intention of this survey is not simply just to generate data for healthcare workers' benefit or whoever reads the literature. It's also about pointing out to service providers and to various information resources where the gaps are. You know, that's the next step. So it's not just going to sit in JAMA or wherever. Well, that's very ambitious, but it's going to be also about developing an information resource to suit it. Now, we have one question online.
It's just from Fiona Steven. Fiona, yes, we will issue the online questionnaire to you after this topic.
Yeah, I'm leaving it open. I mean, the intention is not to finalise the survey, by the way, until early next year. So I think it's very important that I give it this time to do. But, you know, this survey is being done by myself and Seamus under Cancer Trials Ireland. But actually, you know, to have me leading as a patient, I'll be doing it really as a patient. And the idea is then after the metastatic breast cancer survey, we move into other stage 4 areas as well. So we're setting up a programme of work for patient-led research. So this is your opportunity.
Yeah, and I think will we take this into our afternoon tea? Yeah. So Seamus, Siobhan and Olivia are joining us for afternoon class, so they'll be available to any questions you might have. So I'd really like to thank Seamus and Siobhan for their input. It's great to have a
It's still online. Is the questionnaire going to be distributed to everybody listening in?
Absolutely,
They ask
yeah.
at the end, we get the here.
Yeah, so that questionnaire, thank you very much for asking, will be available online. If anyone has a pen handy, my email, it's up on the slide, is siobhan.gaynor@gmail.com. Thankfully, I'll get in early, so it's relatively uncomplex. siobhan.gaynor@gmail.com, okay?
Thanks, Siobhan. If you could make your way around down to the Rose Room, and Fiona is going to lead the way there for afternoon tea. Enjoy, and we'll see you back at 4 o'clock, sometime around about that. Okay.
Okay.